Alright. Hey guys, welcome back to another stream. So today, Stonks maxing day 27. Going to keep working on the Eli Lilly slides. So I think last time I left off with the evaluation part. I think I'm pretty much done with the evaluation actually. I just have to help my group work on the other portions, but I think what I want to do to start is kind of go over my speaking portion real quick and try to time that, see how long I'm going to take. But this one slide, I need to practice like the conclusion because it just kind of flows weird into the manufacturing expansion. And let's see. We think that is completely reasonable. We think that's actually somewhat reasonable. And so we think that is somewhat reasonable. I guess that could just be the end. Alright, so let's talk about valuation. We think that Eli Lilly is entering a pretty strong growth period in the next 10-15 years. So we decided to forecast a 10-year period. And then we kind of asked ourselves, what is the value of the drug pipeline? What is the value of approved drugs? What are the investments required to grow? And how does this impact earnings? So as a result, we recommend to hold the stock with a price target range of $750 to $775. So in the last slide, I had talked about something called a drug pipeline. And pretty much all this is, it's all of the drugs that Eli Lilly is working on today to get approved in the future to hopefully be sold in public markets. We've identified really 4 key products that we think are going to provide a lot of value in the future. The first one is donanemab. So this is an injectable Alzheimer's disease that's hopefully forecasted to be approved late 2024. We also have tirzepatide, which is actually the same thing as Zepbound and Mounjaro, but in this case, it's for new indications. So that's just a fancy science way of saying you're using an existing drug to treat a new disease. And in this case, tirzepatide is trying to treat heart disease and sleep apnea. We also have orforglipron. So this is a oral tablet that you take for weight loss, and then retatrutide, which is something called a triple H GLP-1 agonist drug. This is kind of like the bigger, badder version of Mounjaro and Zepbound. Now there's a pretty strong approved drug portfolio for Eli Lilly as well. Some of the older approved drugs, Jardiance, Trulicity, both treat diabetes. Verzenio treats breast cancer. It was also approved for some new indications in 2023. And then most recently, 2022 and 2023, Mounjaro and Zepbound were both approved to treat diabetes and obesity. So these 2 factors are really the driving tailwinds behind our revenue forecast. You can see here that our segment revenue is forecasted to grow exponentially, especially the diabetes, obesity, and cardiometabolic segment. That's really driven by the Mounjaro and Zepbound drugs I had mentioned before, and also the robust drug pipeline within the same business segment. Now, there's obviously some headwinds we took into consideration: supply constraints, obesity competition, insulin price ceilings, and patent expirations are all headwinds that will prevent growth from happening in the future. Going down a little bit further into the product breakdown, so there's really 9 different drugs that we think are going to contribute an overwhelming amount of revenue in the future, especially Zepbound and Mounjaro. I think eventually we forecast they provide more than 50% combined of the entire firm's revenue. Some other ones to note here are Trulicity, Jardiance, retatrutide, orforglipron, Verzenio. These are all the drugs we talked about before. Eli Lilly also has Taltz and Emgality, which are immunology and neuroscience drugs. So we also try to incorporate the effects of the patent expirations in our forecast, notably Trulicity, Jardiance, Verzenio. These were drugs that are approved back in 2014, 2019, so their expiration dates are coming up in our forecast period. Usually what happens then is a lot of generics and biosimilars enter the market, so we forecast that revenue for these products are probably going to decline. Now, at this point, you might be asking, are we crazy? We think that Zepbound and Mounjaro are going to contribute to more than $589 billion in total sales in the next 10 years, and that could be a really crazy assumption if you think about it. So in this slide, we try to kind of break it down into 3 different things here to make it more realizable: the price, the quantity sold, and also the number of patients. So when you look at the price of Mounjaro and Zepbound today, the net price, which is how much Eli Lilly actually receives for a year's worth of drugs, is around $6,000. And we think that that price is probably going to fall to around $3,000 in the next 10 years. There's a lot of competition. There's also hopefully going to be expanding coverage with Medicare, Medicaid, and also private health insurance. And so using those assumptions about price and sales, that actually leads to around 1.8 billion vials, individual units that have been sold in the next 10 years, and that comes down to around 108 million per year. And we took a bit further to look at the number of patients. So there's forecasted to be around 100, so we forecasted around 151 million patients will have taken the drug in the next 10 years, and that comes to around 15 million per year. So when we think about it in terms of patients and vials, we think that it's actually somewhat reasonable. It's a somewhat reasonable assumption because market today for obesity and also the new indications, sleep apnea and heart disease, has more than a 2 billion total addressable market. We're just saying that Mounjaro and Zepbound is able to capture around 5% of that market. So we think there's a lot of value to be captured here, and hopefully our assumptions are not super far off. Now, big question is, how is Eli Lilly going to meet the demand for a lot of these new obesity drugs? Turns out that they're actually spending a lot of capex in the next 2-3 years, specifically expanding into new drug substance facilities and drug product facilities. Drug substance facilities, these are facilities that actually create the active ingredient in your drug, and then the drug product facility, this takes the active ingredient and produces a finalized deliverable, a tablet, an injectable, or vial. So what's happening today, it seems like a lot of this shortage is revolving around the deliverable portion. There's not enough injectables being made. The active ingredient is there though. But Eli Lilly is planning to spend around $5 billion each on expanding the drug substance facilities in Ireland and Indiana, and also drug product facilities in North Carolina and Germany. So we think that in the next 10 years, there's going to be around 80 billion in capex spending to really drive the manufacturing expansion. There's also another really important part of our forecast, which is research and development. And a lot of the catalyst here kind of goes with this weight loss arms race, where Eli Lilly was one of the first movers and currently the incumbent along with Novo Nordisk in the whole obesity drug game. Now, they have a lot of new drugs in their pipeline, retatrutide and orforglipron that we mentioned before, and they also have other drugs currently in R&D that are in phase 2, phase 1 clinical trials. So Eli Lilly is probably going to have to spend a couple billion each on each of those drugs if they want to get them approved. There's also the idea of the rapid patent product life cycle, and this is Eli Lilly's strategy of making sure they can get more drugs approved than drugs that expire. So in order to do that, they're going to have to invest lots in internal research and development and also acquiring other research and development or internal IP from other companies. So all of this kind of flows into our forecast of earnings. There's 2 things here, the margin and then also our income growth. And we think there's going to be a decent amount of margin expansion, around 10-15%. And this is really due to economies of scale from increased production capabilities and also just the top line 16% revenue compound annual growth, both increasing the margins and also increase the dollar amounts in our bottom line. So just some few asides, cost of equity, discount rates, market comparables. Okay. I guess finally, we can maybe do the valuation portion. Okay. But yeah, that's kind of what I want to say for valuation. I think that actually went pretty smooth. So that was a pretty smooth run through. I think that's okay. And I wonder if Okay, so maybe one thing I should talk about here is what what Eli Lilly is, and then also maybe the different markets that Eli Lilly participates in. So let's see. Eli Lilly is a pharmaceutical company whose main goal is to produce medicine to help cure several diseases. It's a pharma company whose main goal is to a drug manufacturer. Manufactures drugs. Eli Lilly is a pharmaceutical company that manufactures drugs. They are involved. Develop new formulations. Develop new formulations, processes, tech. Okay, so pretty much, let's see. So, Eli Lilly, it's a pharmaceutical company that manufactures drugs. Really, what that means is they develop new drug formulations, different manufacturing processes, and new technologies to be able to deliver really groundbreaking treatments to patients around the world. Currently, it's split into 4 different business segments: diabetes, obesity, cardiometabolic, oncology, immunology, and neuroscience. So, taking a bit, let's see. Diabetes, oncology, immunology, and neuroscience. When we look at the entire pharma industry is really big as an entire. When you look at the entire pharmaceutical industry, it is pretty broad, so we wanted to take a bit deeper look into kind of the different markets that Eli Lilly, some of the more important markets that Eli Lilly is working in. And so we have 3 different, right? Diabetes type 1 and type 2, and obesity. I guess you could say that Mounjaro, Zepbound, Wegovy, and Ozempic are also treating diabetes as well. Okay, so as we flip through the business segments. So with that being said, so there's 4 different business segments: diabetes, oncology, immunology, and neuroscience. For industry analysis, we try to focus on some of Eli Lilly's business. For our industry analysis, we try to focus on Eli Lilly's biggest segments. That includes oncology, diabetes, and obesity. So starting with oncology, this is just a fancy word for cancer, and this is a reasonably sized market with about 20 million of new cases of cancer to treat each year. So this is actually Eli Lilly's second largest business segment after diabetes, obesity, and cardiometabolic. But in the case of the market size, there's around 20 million new cases of cancer to treat per year. And the most common types of cancers today include breast cancer, lung cancer, and colon cancer. Usually the way that cancer is treated is through a combination therapy. So you combine multiple different types of drugs in order to stop the growth of your cancer and then hopefully kill the actual cancer cells. And on average, it takes around $100,000 to treat per person. So the competition here is actually pretty tough. There's a lot of big names, Merck, Roche. There's a lot of big names here, Merck, Roche. So Merck has, Merck, Roche, Amgen. I think GSK, so Roche, cancer drug. Keytruda. Let's see, Roche, annual report. Really? Wait, did I spell that wrong? Revenue and sales. Let's see, oncology. Perjeta, I guess that's monoclonal HER2 positive breast cancer. Perjeta. Perjeta. Okay. So I guess we could talk about competition here. Merck, Roche, and So when looking at the pharmaceutical industry, we kind of broke it down. We broke it down by the different business segments or markets that Eli Lilly operates in, specifically the top three. So oncology is the second largest business segment, specifically the top two segments. Oncology is Eli Lilly's second largest business segment, and oncology is just a fancy name for cancer. But pretty much the market size here, there's around 20 million new cases of cancer to treat per year. And the most common types of cancer include breast cancer, lung cancer, and colon cancer. And this is actually usually treated with a combination of drugs, and on average it takes around $100,000 to treat, depending on what stage of cancer you're in and what type of cancer it is. So this is a really, really competitive industry, or a competitive market. You have big names like Merck and Roche, and a whole bunch of others like Amgen, GSK, but Merck is kind of one of the big players in the space. They have this drug called Keytruda, which does some really magical things. I don't even know the science behind it, and Perjeta. And Roche has a really cool drug named Perjeta that also does some pretty magical things as well. But moving on to the diabetes, obesity segment, we kind of split this up into two things, diabetes and obesity. But starting with diabetes, both type 1 and type 2, there's around 400 million people today that suffer from type 1 or type 2 diabetes, and there really is no cure. But you can kind of mitigate the effects of really high blood sugar levels by using insulin injections. And so the competition here is actually kind of like the Warriors in the 2014-2015 NBA season. You kind of have big three players that really dominate 90% of the insulin market, and so Eli Lilly today accounts for around 23% of the entire insulin market. Now, obesity. So obesity is probably the largest addressable market out of all of the segments that Eli Lilly operates in. There's around 2.1 billion people in the world that are overweight, and then in terms of obesity, there's around 400 million globally. So, let's see, actually, obesity statistics. I wonder what the actual okay, this is actually pretty good. And 2.4 billion to see 2 billion people today. Wait. 800 million are or 900 million are medically obese. So I think this is BMI. $30 or higher. Okay, so this is actually I'm like 5'4", bit overweight. Interesting. Okay. So let's see, what should I say here? So Eli Lilly represents, I don't know exactly what the market share is, but maybe market. Okay. So let's see here. Obesity. There's around 2 billion people today that are overweight, and then 900 million are medically obese. Also, I think. No. Nope. Shit, where did my stream go? Fuck. Oh, here we go. Let's go, maxing. What's good, Andre? Okay, where was I? In the slides. Okay. Buy sales. Okay, nice financial analysis. So we could see that the net margins actually ended up declining from 2019 to 2023. And I think a big reason for that is Eli Lilly try to spend a lot of money on their clinical trials to get Zepbound and Mounjaro approved, and then also research on the different, and also I guess future research on the then phase 2, phase 1 drugs for orforglipron, and also the donanemab and what was the other one? Retatrutide. So yeah, those are the big ones. I want to say, I think the schedule here. Actually, let me. So I guess usually Eli Lilly doesn't directly distribute to pharmacies themselves. So that usually goes through a distributor, but Eli Lilly does sometimes send products to hospitals and doctors. And then whenever that revenue gets sent out to, whenever these products get sent out to these three end markets, or I guess the three customers, then Eli Lilly will kind of mark some revenue. But another key portion to our equation is the pharmacy benefit manager. So every single time Eli Lilly ends up selling a product, they also have to make an estimate about how much in rebates they have to pay, how much in rebates they have to pay to the pharmacy benefit managers. And so the way that maybe here. some interesting counts. Also, maybe acquired R&D. Let's take a look here. Acquired R&D. Okay, so I guess these are all... Oh, interesting. So I think what happens actually is, it seems like a lot of these acquisitions happen for drugs or companies that are in either phase 2, phase 1, or preclinical trials. So I don't think anyone in the phase 3 of clinical trials is probably going to sell their drug because they've gotten so far. And maybe a lot of these are companies that have promise but don't actually have anything to show for. Okay, then maybe, so acquired in process research and development. Yeah, I guess we don't really need that. Income statement accounts, balance sheet accounts. Right, and then the key ones here: research and development, asset impairments. Okay, all right, I think I am gonna have to go meet my team right now in the library, so yeah, I'm gonna have to do that right now. I'll probably continue to stream maybe later today if I end up practicing, but if not, then thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.